It's recording, I think.
There you go.
Yeah. When the red button is on, it's recording. Yeah. Okay. Just want to make sure I get I think so. Once everybody sits, if you could just make sure it gets
Yes. You'll be able to. Yeah, that's all that matters. Here, let's turn it. There you go, right there is good.
Okay.
Here, stay a fan. There you go. Yeah. Stuff like that.
That's not fair.
You don't need one right now.
Discrimination against women.
Alright, good evening everyone. Thank you all your attention, please. We need a little cooperation because we have a big crowd, as you've noticed, so it took us a few minutes extra to get everybody checked in. We did not have enough paper ballots when everyone first got here to cover this size crowd, so we didn't hand you your paper ballot. We have two options here. We could try to work it out with hand voting, but we now have enough paper ballots. So what I need is for you to help us. We're going around passing out the ballots. Most of you checked in. If you did not check in up here, please do not take a ballot. I need you to help us out with honor system here, okay? Because we didn't have enough at the time. We have enough paper ballots now. As we go around, as I said, you'll get a ballot. If you did not check in, please do not take a ballot. If you want to get checked in and didn't, please come up front and get checked in, and then you can have a ballot. And we'll get the meeting started in a minute. Okay, you should be getting ballots for item 1 right now. I'm gonna start with ballots for item 2, okay? So just kind of make sure you get it with 2.
There's no
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
everybody. If you checked in, you should have a ballot for item 1 and a ballot for item 2. If that is not what you have, let us know. Right? We'll get the last couple of people signed in, and then we'll make, again, you make sure if you signed in, you have a ballot for item 1 and a ballot for item 2. We're gonna get the last couple people signed in, and we'll start the meeting in a minute. Thank you. And yes, there's a couple people who asked, so that everybody knows, we will do a numerical count, and we will make sure that if 75 people checked in, we don't have 100 votes. We will check.
They're both behind. Just said it all.
Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order at 7:24 p.m. This is the town meeting of the town of Willington, Connecticut on February 17th, 2026. First, I'm going to read the call for the meeting. The electors of, Town of Willington notice and warning of town meeting. The electors of the town of Willington and all persons who are entitled to vote in town meeting on the matters mentioned in the following warning are hereby warned and notified to meet at the Old Town Hall at 11 Common Road in Willington on Tuesday, February 17th, 2026 at 7 p.m. for the following purposes. Item 1, to see if the people, on the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen, will approve the Willington Sustainability and Energy Committee, WISE, resolution supporting participation in the Sustainable CT Municipal Certification Program. Town of Willington resolution supporting participation in the Sustainable CT Municipal Certification Program. Whereas Sustainable CT is a comprehensive statewide action-oriented voluntary certification program built by and for municipalities with the vision that sustainable CT communities strive to be thriving, resilient, collaborative, and forward-looking. They build community and local economy. They equitably promote the health and well-being of current and future residents, and they respect the finite capacity of the natural environment. Whereas Sustainable CT is designed to boost local economies, help municipal operations become more efficient, reduce operating costs, and provide grants and additional support to municipalities. Whereas Willington embraces an ongoing process of working towards greater sustainability, selecting which actions it chooses to pursue from the voluntary menu of actions provided by Sustainable CT. Resolved by the Board of Selectmen of Willington that we do hereby authorize the chairman of Willington Sustainability and Energy Committee to serve as Willington's Sustainable CT contact person for the Sustainable CT municipal certification process and authorize him or her to complete municipal registration on behalf of Willington. Resolved that the Willington Sustainable and Energy Committee shall report quarterly, that the Willington Sustainability and Energy Committee shall report quarterly to the Board of Selectmen on the progress of its activities towards Sustainable CT certification, with reports and presentations made publicly available. Item 2, to see if the townspeople, on the recommendation of the Board of Finance, will appropriate $127,338.01 from the $3 million set aside for school projects in the Capital Reserve Fund to account 04.405.0.003 School Building Committee. Item 3, to discuss community updates with no actions to be taken. Having read the call, I'll entertain a motion for a moderator.
John Tian, 26 Aldrich Mills Road. I'd like to nominate Erica Wazinski to be moderator.
We have a nomination for Erica to be moderator. I know we debate this every time. We look for, right? Are there other nominations for a moderator? Seeing none, we'll vote on the nomination for Erica Wyszynski as moderator. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And that carries the day. Erica, come on up.
Without objection, we will suspend from rereading on all. Any objection? Seeing none. Item 1, to see if the townspeople, on the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen, will approve the Wellington Sustainability and Energy Committee live resolution supporting participation program. Town of Burlington resolution supporting participation in the Sustainable CT statewide action-oriented voluntary certification program built by and for municipalities with a vision of thriving, resilient, collaborative, and forward-looking. They build community and local economy. Equitably promote the health and well-being of the current and future residents and the capacity of the natural environment. Whereas Sustainable CT is designed to boost local economies, operations, become more efficient, reduce operating costs, and provide grants and additional support to our municipalities. Whereas working toward greater sustainability, selecting which actions it chooses to pursue from the voluntary menu of actions provided by Sustainable CT. Resolved by the Board of Selectmen of Wellington that we do hereby authorize the chairman of the Wellington Sustainability and Energy Committee to serve as Wellington Sustainable CT contact person for the Sustainable CT process and authorize him or her to complete municipal registration on behalf of Wellington. Resolved that the Wellington Sustainability shall report quarterly to the Board of Selectmen on the progress of its activities with reports and presentations being publicly available. Phew.
I'll make the motion.
For a second.
I'll second.
Carol Johnson. In motion and second, I will open the floor to discussion. Is there someone from the existing WISE committee that would be speaking to this item first? So Mr. Tian, John will share with us some information, and then if we have questions, they'll go through myself to the floor. All right, just identify yourself for the record, please.
Hi, everybody. John Tehan, 26 Eldridge Mills Road. I'm proud to serve Wellington as the chair of the Wellington Sustainability and Energy Committee. I was happy to learn about Sustainable CT, and I really think that this is an opportunity for the town to maybe streamline our operations along a more sustainable path and save the town some money. Reducing operating costs is one of the big thrusts of this organization. Reduced operating costs for the town means lower taxes for the residents, and so I'm really looking forward to accomplishing several of the objectives in the Sustainable CT offerings. They offer dozens of different methods to make ourselves more sustainable, from composting to anaerobic digestion to solar power, heat pumps. There's a myriad of opportunities to be found in the Sustainable CT program, and I urge your support for the program this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Hi, Jim Bulick, Laurel Drive. We have a contract, I believe, with Siemens for some type of energy savings. There was certain requirements that had to be met with that. I'm not sure how the WISE energy certification conflicts with that or not, but
John, if you can take that and then
Okay.
Ursula can follow.
Sure. We've been in touch with John Morrow, who is our point person with the for energy contracting. There's no conflict with Sustainable CT as far as that's concerned. We'll work with them to make sure that these initiatives pass muster with them and that they benefit the town.
That's exactly what I was saying.
Anything else?
No. John Blessington, 29 Mason Road. There's a rumor going around that if this is passed, you'd have to get rid of your oil furnaces. Now, I don't quite believe this, but the way this is written is so vague that it could be. You never know. It's another bureaucracy, and will probably end up costing us money, and I don't know if it will save us anything or not. I do have a little problem here. The WISE committee, the Wellington Energy Committee, was formed, about 8 years ago, I think it was. And it was charged with looking into sustainable energy, meaning mostly either solar or geothermal energy, and reducing the dependence of the town on fossil fuels. So it sort of died out. They met a couple times. They didn't meet for about 6 years, and then a couple of years ago they reconstituted. And I'm a little concerned here because the chairman of the WISE committee, which would be working with this, if I understand, he's living selling solar panels. And this is kind of this raises the issue of conflict of interest. So I, for one, am going to vote no on here. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
I'd be happy to respond.
In response to Mr. Camp, and I'll come here and talk.
For the record, I did throw away my oil furnace, just in case anyone wants. I pay a lot less for my heat than I would if I still had my oil furnace. So just for the record on that. I do work in the solar power industry. I work for a company that's licensed in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. We are not licensed to do business in Connecticut. There can be no possible conflict of interest with my job. A company that works in Massachusetts only. I happen to be able to work remotely. I got to recommend if you're going to work in the solar power industry, get the one that lets you wear the fuzzy slippers, because that's what I'm able to do all day long. I get from my bedroom to my coffee pot to my office, and I have no commute. It's fantastic. I do work in solar power, but we have no possibility of conflict of interest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alicia Corsini, 732 River Road. Have you reached out to the neighboring towns and seen what kind of issues they've had or not had with their geothermal and solar systems? Stafford, for one. I know that when they put geothermals in, it drew all the water out of the wells in that area, and they had to bring in water tankers and redrill wells and refrac wells. And they've had many, many issues with their solar panels.
You have to address your questions to the moderator. Sorry.
Right, here you go. I don't want to cut you off when you're done with your question. Okay. It's either.
I couldn't begin to answer that one. As far as geothermal is concerned, there's many ways to do it. It sounds to me like you're talking about a geothermal system that pulled water up out of the ground, used the heat in that water, and then disposed of it. That's a real problem because obviously you poison the well, right? I have a geothermal system in my house. It uses a ground loop of propylene glycol, human grade antifreeze. It's in your toothpaste. You can eat this stuff. And that antifreeze goes through a loop in the ground. And that's how I have a constant 55-degree reservoir of fluid to heat my house with in the wintertime and to cool my house in the summer. So that's the type of geothermal that I would recommend. I certainly would around and dry up someone's aquifer here in Welborn. That would be really counterproductive, and certainly not something that I would advocate.
So I just want to comment on the possibility of various different uses of these alternative or efficient energy sources. This resolution will not move us in any direction towards actually using any of those systems. This will move us into more conversations about what programs are available, what could we go forward and do. So from an administrative point of view, maybe it puts us one step closer, but it does not start us on any projects. There's no construction, there's no project, everything in the program is voluntary. So the only thing that I know of that's happening in Wellington, which is independent of this, is relating to Wellington Systems, is there is a plan pretty close to being completely approved to put solar next to Button Hill in the senior area off Old Farms Road. That is regardless of this program, that's happening anyway, and that particular system is going on land we already own and is going to assist basically that area, the energy use in that area by providing some, not only energy source, but also providing some basically rental money to use the land. There's no plans for any other infrastructure related to this. So this doesn't start a geothermal system or anything like that. It just starts, it gets us involved, and I believe almost every one of the 169 towns in Connecticut are now. There are only like less than 10 towns that are not in the program. So,
Are you not comparing that with the bathroom room?
Joan Gerard was, comprehensive program. Takes our inland wetlands, it takes our conservation commission, it sitting on economic development commission, I'll tell you that a lot of this is in the direction we would like to see from. I'm sure that probably wetlands are looking at things here saying this is great. It's programs like this that bring where you have a tragedy and a town comes together. So I think this is a lot of opportunity, but I would really like to learn more about how it works and how you organize it. And are all these committees represented on the sustainability committee? To do this, I think. So I think we would look at that at this point, but I think it's wonderful.
I'm gonna go to the back room and I'll run all the way.
Richard Weiler, 233 Moose Meadow Road.
I'll just ask you if you could speak a little bit louder.
Richard Weiler, 233 Moose Meadow Road. I'm very intrigued and sounding a really witty proposition. My only question was, did I hear correctly? Quarterly to that.
Yes.
I mean,
The last time you said they would report.
I mean, it concerns me a little bit, in that there may be something special. Would it be possible to amend that or expand that to quarterly or as needed?
I just want to, Mike McCoo for a second, I want to answer that administratively. I don't believe this is the resolution that is geared towards the program. I don't think we can change it in the resolution, but I would assume that everybody involved from the Board of Selectmen to the other committees would be happy to establish a relationship that says anything that happens each month that is worthy of reporting, you report to the Board of Selectmen, to the Board of Selectmen meeting, or something to that effect. So we wouldn't have to wait for the quarterly report.
Okay, thank you.
Jen Tian, 26 Eldridge Mills Road. I took a look at Sustainable CT online today because even though he knows a lot about it, I didn't. And the real takeaways for me, it costs nothing. There's no requirements for, I heard some talk online, that is this going to require us to hire somebody? No, it doesn't. It doesn't cost the town anything. There's nothing that's obligatory. There's no requirements that we must meet. All it is joining this work. Fabulous resources with information. There's webinars available for people, say a certain committee wants to learn. It is a real clearinghouse of information, and it also gives us access to grants and to matching funds that we would not otherwise have. So there's no costs, there's no obligations, all there are opportunities and resources.
All the way back to the hand.
Bill Bennell, Red Oak Hill Road. I was just looking at this flyer, and they don't just talk about energy, they talk about land use, cultural ecosystems, resilient planning, town planning, clean and diverse transportation, and a bunch of things about healthcare. I mean, it seems like it's very broad as far as the kind of opportunities or resources it might offer.
Nick Alberta Road, I have a few questions. First, what are the expected short and long-term costs of the town? I know you're saying nothing right now, but has there been any studies, including staff time or outside consultants, and who would pay for those? And if volunteers become overextended, what prevents this from turning into a funded staff position in the future? And my last question, and I can repeat it if needed, can the town obtain state and federal grants without participating in this program?
I'll take the first shot at that. None of those things are in the plan right now. And if there was some need, and none of the programs in this, in getting engaged in this, are looking to add staff. It's more a clearinghouse of information for getting access to grants. To your question about grants, there are grants. Most of the way we find out about grants in the town office building, because there's so much activity out there and there's a lot of grants coming at us, 2/3 of which we don't qualify for or don't relate to a program we're doing or whatever. So the information just comes like a fire hose. Part of the way we sort through those grants and figure out what we can use and how to get through what is sometimes a difficult application process is by working with these various organizations that are clearinghouse organizations for information. They often provide guidance. I don't see a time, it doesn't mean it can't happen, that we would in the future add staff for any possibility of different reasons. But I don't see anything in this right now that hints towards needing to add staff. It's just to gain information to potentially use some of these programs, including even some of the stuff that Mr. Blythe mentioned that was the various different resources that many different people have talked about in here, including, for example, with some of the simple things that are part of our infrastructure, like calculating if our bridges have enough capacity underneath them for a flood to flow through. Like literally, those are some of the programs that are in these type of sources of information, so that when we do a bridge replacement or we replace a culvert under a road, we're allowing enough room for water to go underneath as opposed to going over. So that's where it ties in like environment and weather and infrastructure. So that we would be doing that anyway. We don't need to hire an extra person to install a culvert. When we replace a culvert, we're contracting that work out anyway. So I hope that answers some of your question.
I guess more so, what is going to be put in place to prevent an expense to the town? Right now is
this right here. The townspeople being informed that we're going to add staff, and the townspeople voting yes or no.
Question on the item. Question that.
Morris will be Eastern Road. I would definitely acknowledge what you said, and totally what Mrs. Teen said. I think this is a really positive program. It does not commit the town to doing anything. a way for communities to say, we believe that we want to move towards sustainability, and how do we get there? And this allows us to have free, there's different levels that towns can try to achieve, but again, you're not obligated to do any of it. Or if that's the pathway you want to take. Many towns are close by to us, instead of, are engaged in this, Stafford, Holland, Chaplin, Ashford, Woodstock, Greenville, and Newcastle. All participate in this program. Thank you. Any discussion?
Adams Lawrence, 119 River Road. Just wanted to ask, it seems like it's got a lot of benefits and potential, we could, resources and grants and stuff. Let's just say in the future, we decide we don't want to continue with the program, can we vote to just not be part of it? I think there's a lot of good needs if that's the case.
I'd be happy to postulate on that. I don't know that we could quit the program, but if we stop doing activities within the program, I don't think that there's anything that can force us to continue to do things.
Okay, it's voluntary.
Yeah, it's totally voluntary. It's a voluntary process, yeah.
And it does state that in the resolution voluntary. Yeah, and there's no contract behind this like that I'm signing on behalf of the town. There would be some administrative between the WISE committee and the program. There's no contract that the town will be signing to commit to something.
Okay, so we should participate going forward then.
Exactly.
And if there was a program down the road that would require the town to sign something for, it would come up and it would be shared in the public in meetings.
A little bit over it. No, this almost sounds like getting a library card to a state resource.
All right, any further discussion? One, or twice, seeing none, we'll close discussion. We will, vote, your ballot is, the yellow ballot.
They're probably all yellow, yeah. It says item 1 on it.
Yes. So the yellow ballot. I will remind you to be in the room to vote. It is one ballot per person.
I'm sure I can get a helper to put ballots.
And one ballot per person, we must be in the room to vote.
There's a lot of bills on that
We got everybody's item 1 ballot.
I think if we had it. We ordered from Canada. But the fact that she was going away for 2 years, it was kind of. Claire's, she's 19. She's graduating. 2 years later.
All right, we have, patient purposes 76. Ballots given out. The yeses for item 1 were 53 and the noes were 23. The item carried. Congratulations. On the recommendation of the Board of Finance, will appropriate $127,300 and 1 cent from the $3 million set aside for school projects in the Capital Reserve Fund to account 04.4050.4000.003 School Building Committee.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second on this item?
I'll second.
Shannon? Any discussion? I'll open the floor for discussion, and I'll give an opportunity for the chair of the school building committee to speak to the item, and then discussion from there.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Jim Marshall. I get the pleasure of serving as the chair of the school building committee, or this iteration of it. And I don't project as well as our last speaker, so I'll do my best.
Jim,
yeah.
if I could just ask you to speak up a little bit.
Yeah, so thank you for coming out tonight and thank you for the consideration of this funding request. The committee itself has only really been in existence for less than a month now, but a lot has happened. So I think a little sense of background to give you an understanding of why we're here, why we're having this discussion again, and why this request is before you is warranted. At the end of the last state legislative session, through the work of our state legislators and the prior Board of Selectmen, Wellington was approved and was provided special legislation that creates up to an 80% reimbursement rate for the town of Wellington on a new or renovated school project or substantially renovated school project. That number is a dramatic change in the calculations of math from when we first revisited this as a community 3 years ago. In addition to that, the legislation also allows potential bonus opportunities for up to 15% reimbursement potentially on the entire school entire school project, which could bring Wellington's reimbursement rate for a substantial school project up to somewhere around 95% or less. There is a method and application process through the Office of Grants Administration that we would have to entertain, and there's calculations and formulas that go into that calculation and to define what the reimbursement rate is for Wellington, to define what eligible costs are, et cetera. One of the primary goals of the committee in this first phase of its effort is to do that evaluation and to do that data collection on behalf of the town. We are appointed to work for the taxpayers in Wellington to try to define an effective and efficient school project to capitalize on this potential opportunity if the voters in Wellington decide that that's what they want to proceed with after being afforded the opportunity to review all that data. So with that said, there are timelines and time limitations associated with that, which are really driving some of the schedule and the committee's work initially. The legislation, although it allows for that reimbursement rate for Wellington to afford a grant application opportunity before June 30th of 2027, there is additional legislation that's passed previously that comes into effect June 30th of this year, or July 1st of this year, which changes some of those guidelines and calculations for how reimbursement eligibility is calculated, which would largely offset a significant portion of this added bump that we're eligible for, making the cost of Wellington greater. So with that said, the committee is working hard to maintain our eligibility by working towards a grant or developing a grant application and developing projects for voter consideration before June 30th. To do that requires professional assistance because it is a complicated process. So while the committee's only been working for about a month now, we have acted very efficiently and prudently to make sure that we are getting as much as we can done for everybody in the limited time that we have available to maintain that eligibility. So in the past month, we have both solicited for and we're about to interview for owners project managers to help us with our work and to help us make sure that we're complying with all those requirements to maintain the eligibility for that significant grant reimbursement from the state. We have solicited for architectural services to help develop and define several project options that I know are of interest to the community that involve both a new school construction, a substantial renovation in addition to the hall, new school options on the hall site, and hopefully an evaluation of should we not proceed with the grant application, what the cost to maintain these two buildings will be for the town, so that everybody has an informed amount of data to make a decision on how we should proceed as a community. So with that said, the committee does have some limited funding available that was made available by the Board of Finance prior to it starting. But what I will say is that funding is not adequate to be able to fund all of the committee's needs. Quite frankly, it's enough to handle administrative work. It is possibly and probably enough to handle an OPM services, but This isn't our first pass at this, and we have good experience as to what sort of commitment this takes as a community and financially to bring a competent proposal to the town. So things like architectural services, we are anticipating interviewing and potentially being able or ready to award in early March. And we do not have the funding currently to be able to engage that consultant in the very limited time window currently. So this request in large part would be to help fund bringing on that professional assistance as well as likely municipal financial advisor services so that we can understand the tax impact of any project in Wellington, property evaluation as applicable, and all of the other tasks and services that we know, including legal, that we know are going to be a part of the committee's work between now and early June, which is when referendum needs to be. So the schedule is really the important part, because if we cannot engage that consultant, if we don't have the funding available to engage that consultant once the committee has evaluated and selected one, almost immediately, if we have to wait to find funding, that cuts their production window to work for the town dramatically, and we only have limited months in order to get that work done. So that is the gist of the request. The dollar amount, I know it's odd, and I hate the fact that there's 1 cent in it. But it was done because of in combination with the funding that was already approved by the Board of Finance, it brings the total amount of funds that the committee would have available to it to $200,000, which is in line with the precedent that we've set both with the prior school building committee and more recently with the Emergency Services Facilities Building Committee, and for other committees that are doing work with this type. That is not to say that the school building committee will expend it all. We are still going to be responsible fiscal stewards for all of you. But we do need to have the funds available so that we can act without delay. Or we risk losing eligibility for this opportunity if we decide to do it come June 30th. So with that said, I'm happy to answer whatever questions we do have. And I'll turn it back to you. Thank you very much, everyone.
I think we should go into questions.
Ms. Back to Liz, I saw that hand first.
I think Jim mentioned OPM, what's that?
Just, you try to identify yourself again for the record, please.
Oh, Bill Benoit, okay, sorry.
Thank you.
You mentioned OPM? Yeah,
Yes.
what is it?
Yes, owner's project manager. They're the ones that will assist the committee and help us work through the process that we're doing efficiently in compliance with all regulations, advising us as to how to align a project with costs effectively, et cetera, help us create budgets for any project options. So they're really they coordinate all our other consultants as well. They're the primary point of contact and our liaison for the committee to all of the trades that are involved in the project.
Any other questions? Yes,
Jen McCoo, Clover Springs Drive. Jim and committee, whoever else is here, I just wanted to say thank you for the work you guys have done so far. It's amazing to see how much you can fit into a very short amount of time. And I also wanted to appreciate kind of how you addressed this clearly bipartisan crowd tonight, talking about taxes and financial stewardship. That's really important. And I just urge folks to consider what Jim and the committee are talking about. We will never ever see another reimbursement rate like this again. And the two schools that we have currently, while historically awesome, are really cost prohibitive to this town. And we need to think about what we are going to do next. So,
thank you. Any other comments right here in the front?
So I just have a question. Oh, sorry. Jen Tien, 26 Eldridge Mills Road. Got it from two directions. I just had one question. I haven't been keeping up with the school committee as much as I probably should. And I knew about the legislation that Tammy and the people had made for the significant support from the state. I didn't know that there was changing legislation. I'm a little confused as to how the changing legislation is affecting this. I just didn't get that.
And that is something we'll rely on the OPM, the owner's project manager, and our architectural team to fully flesh out. But the latest, the information as I understand it currently, is that as of July 1st, the way the Office of Grant Administration calculates the the cost per square foot that will be reimbursed by the state, it lowers it dramatically.
Okay, thank you.
So the same project, if the grant application happens after July 1st, is eligible for much less from a square foot cost perspective for that construction, which means the amount of grant aid coming to town is reduced.
Okay, thank you.
In this case, it negates a large part of that. So, which is why we're working so hard and efficiently to try and get this information.
Just a point of clarity on that, because I have been in regular contact with Tammy Nuccio. She worked very hard to get the approval for the higher reimbursement rate. And she's been keeping in close contact with me about the progress of this process. She is pushing very hard for us as a town to have an opportunity to really dig into this, look at it carefully, understand the numbers, and make an educated decision. She has no intention of pushing us to do a school project. She has every intention of pushing us to do the evaluation, this part of it, in time to make use of the reimbursement if we as a town choose to do so. So her push is not, you guys need to build a school, now I got you the reimbursement. It's, now that I got you the reimbursement, you guys need to do a careful study and you need to get it in front of the townspeople so the townspeople can decide if they're gonna leverage this opportunity. And that, we had the same conversation today, as a matter of fact. The difficulty that Jim is explaining about this construction value thing and the reimbursement, which makes it confusing, worries me, because the last time, one of the problems we had with the previous school building committee that everyone in the room knows I was on, was the information was not clear. And it made it very hard for townspeople to decide what to do. Beyond the fact, it also was way more expensive because the reimbursement rate we were talking about was like 62%, as opposed to 80 plus potentially maybe 15 more.
Less than that, depending on what
Yeah,
option you're
right,
looking at.
so a huge difference in what the reimbursement rate was. So the legislation that Tammy Nuccio got approved, as Jim said, goes through 2027. So that is the reimbursement rate, that's the 80% or 79 point whatever it is, basically 80%. Reimbursement rate plus the pre-K, which could apply to the whole project, which would put us, I think the actual number maybe 93.33.
Correct.
Percent reimbursement. The question has come up, well, I thought we had that reimbursement rate through 2027, why are we worried about 2026 now? The reason we're worried about 2026 now is that reimbursement rate is gonna carry after July 1 till the next June 30th. But it will apply to a $500 and some per square foot calculation for construction cost versus what is now $740 or something. The numbers change by dollars here and there, but there's roughly a $738 or something like that. Roughly $750 per square foot reimbursement rate right now. So if construction is that per square foot or under, you can apply the 80% plus the other percentage to all of that construction cost. After July 1, 2026, you can only apply that to $500 and some per square foot of construction. So the state's still telling us we get 80% plus another almost 15%, but we can't use it on the whole cost of construction. Unless we can somehow figure out how to build that $500 per square foot. And every school project right now, even the inexpensive ones, are over $500 per square foot. So we will end up paying more locally if we go past July 1 of this calendar year because of that change in the construction calculation. So the effort here is to make sure all of you have the right information before July 1 to make a decision on if we want to go forward so we can get the best reimbursement rate applied to the most amount of the project, which is what makes this all more confusing.
Yeah, just identify yourself.
Okay, here's Roshan from First Meadow Group. How many people received that postcard in the mail? May I ask that question?
Not really, no.
No, I'm sorry. I did that.
You could, if I may, you should have received a mailer. Because I
Okay.
think what the Spurs out.
One of our priorities last time that we did not communicate sufficiently to the townspeople about what was going on, how it was going on, et cetera. So a large priority of ours this time around is to keep you informed. That yellow postcard was our #1 attempt to let you know what was going on, what we've done so far, what's coming up. Watch the Burlington Wire, we'll have an article coming out in there to really explain the process. There are also, there on your yellow card, you saw websites where you can participate in the meeting. Watch previous meetings, you have access to all of the documents that we're looking at throughout this process. So we hope we have your, well, as Mike said, we want you to have informed information so you know exactly what's going on.
John Berg, 34 Red Oak Hill, as a commissioner on 2 boards, unpaid, of course. I just want to take an opportunity to thank the selectmen for their work on this project and thank the building committee for what will be work to come that I'm sure will be significant for their efforts in trying to get this project evaluated properly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? In the back, no, back there.
Rich Miles, 46 Hall Road. Will this announce the Hall Foundation property ownership and the impacts of how that goes into it, and will they be informed in the process? I feel like the foundation has said that they were not well informed.
Yes. You've heard, a lot of people who follow us have been hearing for months now that there is an agreement that's being written up between the Hall Foundation and the town. The agreement is complete, it's not signed yet, but it is complete, all the terms have been agreed between the town and the Hall Foundation, and without all the legalese, what I will say that essentially what that agreement means is that the Hall Foundation will be releasing the restriction on the deed. The town does own the school and the other parcel that is subject to the deed restriction, but the deed restriction, as most of us know, means if the town ceases to use it as a school, it reverts the title back to the Hall Foundation. They have agreed to release that requirement. There are a couple conditions on their release, and one is that as long as the town continues to use the property in whatever fashion, be a bunch of playing fields, for example, that the Hall name will stay associated with it. So if we build a new school or we renovate that school, playing fields instead of a school, whatever it is, as long as the town is still using it, the Hall name has to be associated with it. Another one of the requirements is if we were to decide to sell that property, let's just say the decision was to build a new school in the middle of the town green. May as well say something that gets everyone's attention, right? If we're gonna build a new school in the middle of the town green and we don't need Hall School anymore and we decide to sell the property, a portion of the proceeds of that sale reverts to the Hall Foundation in trade for them releasing the deed restriction. And that goes to the foundation for their continued philanthropic efforts for the town, so they can sustain the organization. That's the basic premise of the agreement. The lawyers have been back and forth 50 times, as you can imagine. All the language is now agreed upon. I was really hoping I'd have it signed tonight to be able to say it was done. But it is in the hands of the Hall Foundation right now, and we do expect it to arrive back signed any day. So I hope that answers everything about the Hall Foundation.
Bishop Orsini, 732 River Road. I have a lot of concerns about a new school. Looking at, and I hate to say Stafford again, they have 2 vacant buildings. One is a complete and total eyesore. The other one is so mouse-ridden right now, they can't even function in there. What is gonna happen to these schools? And is money gonna be included in these new school tax, whatever happens, to turn those into whatever we're gonna do? Is there any plans? Are you guys gonna continue to look at that and make it part of the whole committee? When I went to school there, and I'm not gonna date myself, in the 7th and 8th grade, there was more kids in those 2 classes than there was in the whole of the students right now in school. And that was prior to the 2 additions at Hall School. I can't understand why you can't fit the kids in Hall School, fix it, and do what needs to be done, and move on. We can't schools.
So I'll start with the question and remind folks that valid question, lots of answers. The question on the table is, will we appropriate dollars from the school building committee? That is work to be determined. I'll let the chair speak to briefly, but it was not the question on the table.
I'll speak to it just to the point that it shows the importance of the committee being able to tap into the professional resources that this funding that we're asking for tonight is going to go towards. The OPM and other professionals will be able to assist the committee in determining what the comprehensive budget picture is for any of those options. And they're going to vary between what option we're looking at as a committee. Certain costs may be eligible. If we were to build a new facility at the hall site, for example, the cost to demolish the existing hall building, if that were an option, could be potentially eligible. Long story short, yes, the committee is going to be looking as part of the total budgetary package. We are going to present what the straight building costs are for the project, and to the degree that we can answer those other questions within the time limitation that we have. The goal is to provide full budgetary pictures of what the other associated costs would be and what potential options are for the town.
Yeah, yes, so yes.
Yes, is the answer.
So you need to come up with the whole, be nuts to bolts to nuts before July 1 this year.
So, yes, but there is now years worth of due diligence and prior study that we can draw on as a foundation, as well as the professional expertise of those that we onboard. The Board of Ed, and I'll thank both the Selectmen's Office and the Board of Ed for doing a lot of that investigative work over the past several years. They have separately hired consultants that have provided data that the committee will use as a reference and then obviously advance further in conjunction with whatever projects we develop. But yes, the answer is yes, to the degree that at the level it needs to be developed for a grant application and for the town to make an informed decision as to what the budgetary requirements for any project will be. That is our goal, and that is what we're striving for as a committee. And I don't know if you have anything to add, but that's.
I will just add to your question, in all of this would be estimates of even like, what would it cost to carry an empty building if we were to empty the building?
Empty buildings.
Well, I'm saying a building or 2 buildings, any of those options. If option,
Go tour what happened in Stafford.
yes,
Look at it,
yes.
the old high school.
Yep, it's on my mind.
Go look at Staffordville. They can't even put anything in there. That's what's gonna happen here.
I saw it in the back.
Tyler Holmes, 10 Terrace Parks Road. The previous committee already paid for all of this just a couple of years ago. Why do we need to draw up new plans when we had blueprints and everything ready last time? Are we gonna do this again in 2 years? Another $100,000 in blueprints?
So as I briefly mentioned with Ms. Corsini's question earlier, we will utilize that information as a part of our current process. While we are exploring, kind of starting with an open net, open arms, to not miss opportunities for savings or miss project opportunities that might be of interest to the committee. We do have that due diligence that we can draw on and that we can point our consultants to draw on as well to make for a more efficient effort. With that said, the grant application process is a process. And it's a very detailed and complicated process that the committee is going to need that professional assistance to get through. It's a new application. It would be a new application. We never actually provided an application the last time. And quite frankly, the scope and focus of the prior committee was more narrow than what the committee's charge is currently. which is to provide a series of options and as much information as we can to the community, so that there aren't questions as to what ifs, or, you know, what other opportunities we could have explored, or if somebody doesn't like a particular option. We're trying to get all that information, and that, you know, takes that due diligence. But we also have a very limited window. What we are working to do, while trying to be efficient, is limit the amount of expenditure that the committee has to do before June 30th, because anything spent after a successful grant application, or after a grant application is submitted to the state, that professional assistance would then become eligible for reimbursement as well as part of the total project. And again, having the professional assistance to make sure we're doing that on the up and up is important. And it's really, you know, the committee that the selectmen, through their process assembled, is knowledgeable, is diverse, is knowledgeable in both industry, construction industry trades, educational related trades. It is a very specific experience that needs very qualified professional help so that we maintain eligibility. And that's really what we're striving for.
So just to summarize, they won't accept the plans that we already did like 3 years ago. We can't submit them.
So if I may, it's clear that they are starting the process and they will utilize some of those things, but they're looking at not necessarily the same project as the last committee. Is that a fair summarization?
Yep.
Okay. And that the dollars spent now prior to application are not part of that reimbursable money, is something else Mr. Marshall said. I'm going to share that with all of you. All right, anyone else? I'm going to see if back here on the side here. Oh, yes, Mr. Marshall.
Jason Ross, Village Hill Road. This item, this is money that we already have set aside for a project like this, right? We're just trying to allocate it for this specific kind of purpose.
Correct. It currently is set aside for school projects in the capital reserve fund. This will move it specifically.
And I make a motion that we move the question.
Okay, so that immediately stops discussion. A motion to move the question. You heard Mr. Ross. And we vote on the motion to move the question. If it does not pass, then we will continue with discussion. Okay. Is there a second to move the motion? Okay. All right. So the question on the table is to call the question. That would end discussion. So I'll ask for a raised hand on that. All those in favor of moving the question, which again ends discussion and moves to a vote. Your hand. As you put your hands down. All those against, any nays? I have it so that unfortunately folks ends the discussion portion of this question. That is, I want you to know that it's part of the procedure and rule that we follow here in town meeting.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Now we will move. If we in the room vote for one ballot per
Yes, we've done that. No, not special ed. We're not talking about special ed. Separate. And to that end, yeah, to that end. I know you. I'm dying to get.
Okay, I'm sure lots of you have so many hands up, but we have to follow the process. Once someone calls the question, we have to move forward, so I don't want you to think that it is that the town does not want to hear what you say. We have to follow that process. There will be other meetings, and I encourage you to continue to come out and speak to them. Item 2, yeses 50, noes 26, so item 2 carries. There is an item 3 tonight, folks. Item 3, to discuss community updates. There's no action to be taken, therefore there is no motion on the table. Selectman Andy Marco wanted to share some community updates with this body. We have people in the room, we're going to share.
No, I wanted to select it. I wanted to take this time to just talk about what's happening in all the various departments. There's a lot of legislative bodies, there's chairmen and committees. The people that do the work are your tax collectors, your planning and zoning people, your business office. So I'm just going to go real quick. If you have any questions about what I'm saying, please ask. If you want more details on what I've said, probably go to that department. So I'm going to start with the tax collector. Just for, I didn't know this, all revenue goes to the tax collector. Every penny that's collected by the town goes to Ashley and her crew in the tax department. So they're busy all the time, not just during tax season. They're working for you, making sure everything's properly allocated to the right departments. They work with the business office and the selectmen's office. So, and remember that it's your elected officials that set mill rates and expenditures, so don't take it out on Ashley and her team. It's not their fault. Several years ago, that finally came to fruition, and all of the regulations and ordinances have been codified. They're digitized. They're all available online. There was a great deal of work for cleanup, getting rid of redundant regulations and archaic regulations, and ones that have been superseded by other regulations and state legislation. So that's good. It's a beautiful bound book. They are available, printed copies, I think. I don't know if there's a fee for that. There's also, if you know, from the latest CBA meeting, the Zoning Board of Appeals, there was some properties down on River Road. They didn't get their variance to proceed forward with what they wanted to do, and there was a cease and correct order about some of the vehicles and things that was upheld. So just see some changes down there. I don't know if you know about the business office, that Donna Letitia has taken a well-earned leave, and the group down there has worked together and also worked with some business office people from the school committee, school board, and school department to make sure that our money's in good hands and things are moving forward for the budget season. Our tax assessor, they also do a lot of outreach to the community. I know that you have recent change in the farm taxation for property and equipment. So the equipment rates went up from 250,000, I think, to 500. So the tax department reaches out, and when that legislation changes, even though they're working on the grand list from last year, they reach out and they send out a lot of letters. Their largest expenditure is mail. And they reach out to everybody that might be affected to make sure that the residents know about these changes. If we move into Human Services got a grant a few months ago for $5,000 for opioid prevention and awareness, and those things are being, they're using that money to make people aware of opioid problems and prevention. And there's going to be there's a fundraiser, a comedy show, a comedy night at the Rockville Elks Carriage House on 9 North Park Street in Vernon. I didn't write down the date. It's on the website. Sorry about that. The money will go towards the fuel bank and the food pantry and youth program. Parks and Recs, they're doing a lot down there. Rachel's working really hard to get things moving. Basketball season is ending. They should be over 50 youths in the programs. They go from first grade all the way up to high school. They compete in Mansfield, Ashford, Coventry, Hebron. High school even competes with East Hampton. Wellington Ashford practice together at the Hall School. We have a basketball clinic conducted by one of the coaches from the UConn summer camps on March 14th. And Wellington is a member of the Connecticut Recreation and Parks Association. Rachel went to a seminar down in, I forgot what it was. They had bands and entertainment and vendors, and she's going to be able to work with all of those to get the Summer in the Park series going. And there's also a larger convention at Mohegan that she hopes she can go to, and she'd like to kind of support for that, for just just for more recreational opportunities. The town clerk, they are getting, there's some software available called Property Check that alerts the town clerk and landowners, if you have an account, if somebody files a quit claim deed. Now, I learned this today. Anyone can go on, say, LegalZoom or various websites and get a quit claim deed and OP 420 or something, and send that in, and it looks absolutely legal. So I probably get anyone's information online, fill that form out, send it in, and they go look at it, it will look perfectly legal as if somebody was selling my property or actually claiming deed on my property. So this software will allow a resident to set an account and alert, so if anybody tried to do that, the landowner would know about it. Well, you keep the commercial, so title.
I want to add to that software that you just spoke about. I had a parcel on Ruby Road that was for sale through a realtor. And just before I closed on it, I found another listing and it was getting calls about that same property. It was online. Somebody was trying to sell it. They were out in California.
Yeah. So.
And they didn't have to show up in person to sign a listing agreement. They did it online. So that is something very worthwhile for anyone who owns property to pay attention to.
So it seems like a good idea to me. Elections department, they do report to the Secretary of State. They don't report to the town. They don't report to anybody within the town. There's new election software coming up, but the training is light, I'm hearing. So there may be maybe a minor impact on the town. I don't know what it is. They don't know what it is, but be prepared for that and be respectful. The new voting machines also need new training, new software. So I know we had a report, we got new voting machines. And I thought, that sounds great. Well, unbeknownst to me, there's new software, new training, and a lot of background noise that we have to put up with and endure. Every vote, every referendum has a cost. Each ballot has a cost. Every line item on the ballot has a cost. And every year, when the election department submits their budget, it depends on how many votes they think there might be in a year. Presidential elections, election cycles, the more national, state, local referendums there are, the costs go up. And early voting has added about 160 hours to the volunteers. Now, they volunteer, but they aren't paid, so treat them with respect. And leave the front door light on. I'm hearing that's a very important thing. If you leave the front door light on in town hall, it illuminates the voting box, and that's the thing. But no,
I turn it on every night when I leave, and somebody else turns it off.
All right, so Selectmen's office, Everbridge. I don't know if you've ever heard of Everbridge. Everbridge is coming. Everbridge is there will be a dedicated soon on the town website. Everbridge is a communication system providing selectable content by all of us. You can get email, text, or voice. I think content is user-based, so you can select it, but you can have alerts. Maybe you can expand that a little more, like currency alerts, meeting alerts. As I understand it, there's a fairly comprehensive menu. I haven't seen it yet, but I did talk to a couple of towns because I went to say, hey, what's Everbridge? And they like it. Most people seem to like it. You just get a notice about parking bans and anything you want to sign up for, you can find out within a minute. The town of Wellington, I don't know if they've heard through the Emergency Services Facilities Building Committee, contracted for a fire station location study. That study has been completed. It will be posted on the website soon. There will be a link at the bottom of that. We actively I'll put your thoughts, your feelings about it, whatever it is, read it. It's fairly technical in nature, so if you have questions about it, if you reach out to whatever that link is for communication, we'll find the right people to answer those questions. More to follow, but we wanted to get that information out. We will have public meetings to talk more about it in the future. Transfer station will be asking all residents to separate cardboard from the recycling stream, that's from the recycling stream. It's no cardboard, there's two reasons for that. One is, we now get paid for cardboard, that's why there's that separate cardboard dumpster up there. And you get paid by the ton, is actually what you get paid for. And if you take it out of the recycling stream, which we pay for by the ton, it reduces our cost for tipping. So not only do we get money, but we also save money. So please start pulling up the cardboard. I don't think pizza boxes count, but other than that, I really don't know. I think it's mostly corrugated cardboard, brown stuff. And there's a lot of that packaging right now. The school building committee is going to be performing more outreach to the community. Please stay involved. That's the best things we can do, is stay involved with these things. And Tricentennial is coming up in 2027. There will be several events to commemorate that, and stay tuned and get involved. And then I think our first selectman wanted to add a little bit more about emergency services. So thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Andy. When Andy made his list, I forgot a couple of things to have put on his list. If any of you have been following, the conversation was in the town meeting last fall and has popped up in Board of Selectmen recently. There's discussion about a tax stabilization or abatement program for commercial properties that would possibly be an economic development tool. That conversation is getting started again. When it failed in town meeting previously, there was a very clear message across the room, regardless of people's political persuasions or whatever, that we just didn't have enough information to understand it. So we are going to be coming around with that again. We believe there is value in it as an economic development tool, but we have to do a better job of having the details ready for townspeople to understand. And we also have to understand some limits that we did not understand at that time to make sure it does not put too much burden on the residential properties. Because anytime we reduce or stabilize, and stabilize is a little bit of a misnomer, when you reduce the commercial properties taxation, that's made up somewhere. It's either gonna be made up in all the other properties paying more taxes, or we're gonna have to cut the budget to account for it. So, just want you to know, because it's a complicated topic, it's gonna be coming around again, hopefully with better information. I am getting input from people in town on two sides, no surprise, two sides of an issue, about speeding in town. It is clear that we can only count on minimal support from the state police. They are just not going to do it. We've tried for decades now. We used to budget $10,000 a year to pay the state police to do speed, and they still wouldn't do it until June at the end of the business year, and then they would just do a whole bunch of overtime, charge us at time and a half, and use up all the money we'd allocated for the year in 1 month, and then we wouldn't see them again for 11 months. Speeding is a big problem. People are reaching out to me about speed cameras. It's in the news a lot and all that. Speed cameras are gonna need to be a topic that we as a community talk about. There are concerns also. There are people who are reaching out saying there are First Amendment concerns. There are concerns about, I don't want a database of information of every time I go to Wellington Pizza, you know, or whatever. And, so it's gonna be another conversation that we have to look at the details and figure out, but we are gonna have to talk about speed cameras at some point. They're not just gonna appear here in town. For speed cameras to exist, there are requirements. Town ordinance has to be passed town meeting, there's public research, public outreach, we're all required by state law. So don't worry that they're just gonna show up. The town will not just install speed cameras. Just be prepared for conversation. And then emergency management. Small towns, it's hard to have you can't have a full-time emergency manager. There's just not enough work for the cost of that employee. But we've all seen a recent example, what happened in Mansfield with the train derailment. Obviously, that's only a couple miles away from our border. We all know that train had come 10 minutes before through Billington on its way to Mansfield. One thing I want everyone to know is we do have, everything you saw for resources in Mansfield is available to us also. We're in the same county dispatching system, 911 system. There's all kinds of layers of county coordinators and incident management teams and all this stuff. It's all available to us, so we're not unprepared. But we do have to modernize our emergency management platform. You heard a little bit about it with Everbridge. There's gonna be a better way to communicate out. If this train derailment happened in Wellington, a month or so from now, once we have Everbridge really rolled out and people have signed up, notifications could go out about that. We can do it in geographical areas. We have all sorts of options with Everbridge. It's just a communication system. There will also be communication coming out to the townspeople about being a more resilient community. There are really simple things that we all think about in our own homes that we make ourselves a little bit easier, make our lives a little bit easier to handle when the power's out or whatever. So we'll try to get some more information out and kind of update our emergency management plans so that people know where they are, how to access them, and things that you can do to be a little more resilient. And that was the end of my list. So that's it. Andy, are you all set? I'm done. Okay. I just wanted to wrap this up. This was an effort to add some new ways to communicate out to the townspeople. Andy really pushed for this in the selectmen's meeting, and since we had you here, we made you sit and listen to it.
The item is in discussion. I will kind of limit the purpose, which is to share information and then reach back out to the selectmen. Yes, Mr. Murs.
I have a quick question for you, regarding the elevators. How is that different from the healers?
As soon as we finish setting up the web page that explains it, you'll see how they relate to each other. I was pushing to try to have it done before tonight so that we can say the web page is open. There's just too much going on.
It's an opt-in process.
But just like you do with your emails to find out about meetings, you will opt in or opt out. And so you can go in the thing, we will have pages to show you how to sign up, select what you want to sign up for, and it will essentially duplicate some of the e-alerts, but it has a lot of the functionality that the e-alerts doesn't have. It's a more modern system.
Postcard like they did.
We are probably going to do a postcard with a bunch of these updates on it also, yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Real quick, everybody. Engagement, welcome to your questions, the first half hour of the meeting is the community forum. So please feel free to participate or get in touch with the community through email or town office or anything else.
Last committee is reopening, if you want to serve the last guys.
Ralph.